Hey guys, what's going on? My name's Dustin. Welcome to the channel. Today we're actually out at my folks again. We're gonna take care of the poor old gal here, the 98 S10. It's definitely turned into more of a project vehicle than what I thought. Guys, if I give you a piece of information about older vehicles, don't let them sit. Heck, newer vehicles too. Don't let them sit. They need to be driven every once in a while. I've had to do a few things, had to replace the radiator, and today we got to put a cap on it, and put a fuel filter on it. It had water in the gas tank and there was rust in the fuel filter. Well, I thought I might get by just by putting a fuel filter on. Not running quite right, so we need to pop the bed up to try to take a look at the fuel pump. So basically the idea of today's video is to show you guys how to take care of a fuel pump. So while I'm out here, I got a few other tasks. My folks are out of town, at least for the next day or two. So I've been tasked with babysitting their new pup here, so he got to come out and see his house for a little bit, and even though it's raining a little bit, we need to check the mail and take care of the garden and whatnot. And I think he's pretty anxious to get out, so we're gonna get out real quick. And I got my nice pink towel here because I was afraid he might do that jump up there and try to scratch up the top of the leather, which we can't have that. All right, so let's go ahead and get started, guys. All right, so I know dude is ready to get out. Can you do it? Boy, look at him, just like a pro. So in case you guys haven't watched the other videos, so far what I've done to this pickup, we know for sure it's a fuel issue because you can actually prime it by taking off the intake up here and right at the throttle body, actually squirting fuel in it, and it'll run until it runs out of fuel via, you know, pumping it into the throttle body. So you could use starter fluid or something like that, and that's how you know you have a fuel problem. So what we've done thus far is, of course, added some heat because originally thought we had water in the tank. In fact, we know we had water in the tank because there was rust in the fuel filter, so we know there's something going on there. Pretty well got that burned off and siphoned out the rest, put some fresh gas in. Wasn't running too hot, so the next step was to kind of walk a little further back. We replaced the fuel filter, and whenever we replaced the fuel filter, that's when we discovered a lot of rust coming out. So even after replacing the fuel filter, it still wasn't running too hot, so now I'm going to go a little bit further back. We're going to actually look at the fuel pump this time. Really not too bad of a job. There's two methods you can do it. You can either drop the tank, and we've done that. I've done that with my father on an older S10 that I had while I was in high school. And it's not the worst job in the world. Definitely would be better if you had a lift, but it's definitely not the funnest job in the world. The way I would recommend to do it is actually to lift the bed. I found that so much easier. As long as your bolts aren't rusted in there, try that. You know, hit it with some sort of penetrating oil to get those bolts nice and wet and easier to come out, and then try to pop those 8 bolts, and I'll show you guys where those are. So if you guys are kind of do-it-yourselfers out there and work on vehicles quite a bit, I'd really recommend taking a look at this Milwaukee fuel impact driver. This is what I'm going to use to bust those bolts from under there. Now, I wouldn't necessarily recommend this because it does, I guess, throw some sparks in here and can be kind of dangerous. If you got gas fumes going on, like a leak in your gas tank, wouldn't recommend using this. Use air or something to that effect, or heck, use something manual. Breaker bar on there if you have to. But this is not an endorsement or anything. I paid my dues for this one, put in my time to spend some of my hard-earned money on it. So I'm going to try to use this and see if we can get in there and bust some of those bolts. So the first two that I'm going to take care of, at least while I'm out here, are on the passenger side here. So I'm just going right under the front tire. And what you're going to see is this guy right here. Hopefully you can see that okay. And there's one right back there. So I believe they're all the same size. So let me figure out which one of these it is. Okay guys, looks like they're 15 millimeter. And one thing I'd recommend if you're going to do this is don't be like me. Wear some sort of eye protection. It's going to pay off for you. This stuff, if you got very much rust on your frame, it's going to come down in your eyes and not be much fun. And if you are going to use an impact, make sure you're straight on while you're doing this. See how easy that was? As long as the bolt doesn't snap, came right out. Okay, so with an extension for the impact, this job, super easy. I got all those bolts out in, no joke, 5 minutes. Now to be fair, they weren't really rusty. I pulled these bolts off about 4 years ago, at least, and they came off really easy with this impact. I mean, 5 minutes and I had the job done. Got a little ambitious. So there was the two up front that I showed you right here, same on the driver's side. Then if you run around back here, we'll crawl under. And what you're gonna see is there's one right here, and then there's one that's right here as well, just shooting straight up. So this is right where the exhaust pipe is bent and coming out the back. One right there, and then one right here at the back. Just look up from the bumper right here. Same as on that side, so a total of 8. And then once you get those done, the bed, as you can see, starting to pull away. It's going to be pretty heavy, so the next part you're going to want either a tractor to lift this, or maybe a 2 or 3 ton jack and a like a 2x4 or something to lift the front of the bed up. Just make sure you secure it somehow so that thing doesn't smash your fingers or your arms, because it's going to be a bad day. So before moving the bed, be sure to take off the gas cap or else you're going to break it. I did this 4 years ago whenever I did this one. Just never have replaced the cap, but be sure to take it off before moving that bed. Alright, so all we've done is prop this side up with a 2x4, and then we've got a jack stand on the other side. So, I mean, there's multiple ways you could do it. You could put a jack, you could put a jack under here and jack this side up. I actually found it was easy enough to lay on my back and push this part up with my leg using my knee to actually set this in place to where I have, I don't know, 8-10 inches of room to get under here and work. And of course, we got the other side up there so it doesn't put us in a bind, and, you know, more stands for safety. And then we'll come right under here, unplug the clip on this side, the harness, and then do the same with the other side. So your connector may look a bit different. This one's been spliced in, as you can see, and crimped on. That's how you should do the new connector there. It comes with good directions, but there's just a little tab you got to pull out to release this side. Then we'll release the fuel lines. Let me set this over there so I don't lose it. But they should be pretty easy. They just got some quick connects on there. You just squeeze in on both sides and slide them off. Alright, so you can see we've got each of those lines off, and 2 of them just had clips on them. You squeeze the ends to pull it off. This one you got to squeeze the actual plastic part here and pull it off. And now we'll start removing the pump itself. So now is a good opportunity to clean up around the top of the pump, and you can see once you do that, there's a snap ring, at least on mine here, that I just got to compress and then pull out, and then the pump should actually just spring out of there. See, I got one side here. I'm going to start pulling it all around. And you can see, I've got the snap ring off. We'll set it aside for now. And then the pump should just pull right on up out of there. And just be mindful, trying not to get stuff down in there. And there'll be a gasket come out with it. And this might be the tricky part for clearance here. You may have to compress this or lift your bed up more. As you can see, we got the old pump out. Quite a bit of rust in the gas, you can see. So it's looking pretty nasty, as you can see along the bottom there. I may need to take a look and see how the yeah, you can see the screen's just clogged, it looks like, with rust. So we may have a really rusty tank in there. So what I need to do now is look down inside the tank and see how it's looking. Alright, so the old pump's out, and I was actually wrong. There was minuscule amount of rust down there. It's just dirt, literal dirt from like these dirt roads. You can see it's got this plugged up here. I could probably just replace this part and get by. I've tried to hit it with the shop vac as best I can down in there. Try to get you guys a shot of that. But literally it's just dirt down in there. So we got that pretty well cleaned out best we can. And now I'm just going to swap this connector over to the new one. This guy should just pop out of there fairly easy. There we go. Don't forget your little rubber piece here. Pull him out too. So I got the little rubber piece. I like this pump a little bit better. It's a little more shallow, so I won't have to compress it as much whenever we got to put the snap ring in. So I'm going to leave you guys a link down in the description to this exact pump. And you guys, if you use the link, it does help support the channel, so that is definitely appreciated. Just going to set that piece in there. We're going to reuse that. Then you got your lines right here. So we should be able to be good to go ahead and set this guy down in there. Get him situated the right way. Put this snap ring on, and then put our connectors back on and our fuel lines back on. And we'll crank this baby up and see how she runs. And then of course, depending on how it runs, I'm going to leave the bed bolts off for now. And if it runs good, we'll put those back on. If not, we may have to go further. Oh yeah, and don't forget your float either. So there's a float that comes with it that you got to put on. And this float is what sends an electronic message to your gas gauge, so you know how much gas you have left. So I'll just untwist this from the bag. Really, for 40 bucks, I'm pretty happy with this whole build here. We'll see how the quality is. That was a aftermarket pump that was already in it. It had been in there for 4 years, and it was a similar model, 40 bucks. And honestly, for the money, I think it was worth it over a brand new one, even though I'm more of an AC Delco guy. And then of course, if you got the old connector, go ahead and put the new one on. You're gonna have to. Basically, you line up the wires according to the directions, crimp the connections, and you're good to go. This one did come with the new gasket, and I think that may be part of the reason why there was so much dirt in there. Is the old gasket was here. There it is. So here's the old gasket starting to dry rot just a little and whatnot. Here's the new gasket, much more robust. So I don't think it's going to let any dirt in. But before we drop that in there, let me show you guys the old gasket. Yeah, pretty nasty stuff. So glad to get that out of there. Go ahead and drop this new guy in. What I'm going to do is just slide the gasket up and around it, like so. And we'll slide it up towards the top. That way it's out of the way. We don't have to worry about it. Just like so. Then I'm going to slide it on down in there and we'll put that snap ring on. So once you've got everything buttoned back up to your liking, what you're going to want to do, and of course whenever I say buttoned up to your liking, connecting your fuel lines in the proper location, and it's really hard to screw up because I mean, the lines will only fit a certain way, so just try until you get them right. I mean, you got a 33% chance with each line. It only increases as you get them right? So once you do that, go ahead, drop your bed back down. Once the snap ring's on and all your lines are in place, your electrical connections are made, drop the bed back down, put all 8 of your bolts back in, just like I showed you how to take them out. Then what you're going to want to do, and you may notice that the truck's in a different spot because the fuel pump ended up working. I'm able to drive it. It works great now. You're going to want to turn the key and cycle the key on and off a few times. And you're going to notice, we'll point the camera back here and listen. Maybe you'll be able to hear it on camera. I don't know if you can hear it over the dinging of the truck, but that's the fuel pump cycling. You can hear it there. So cycle it 5 to 10 times, I'd say. That way you're getting fuel all the way up to your rig here. And then 2, one thing that you might be mindful of before you even drop the bed and call it a day, so take a look at your dash, because sometimes I've seen guys not get a good electrical connection, or their fuel pump may be bad or something wrong with it, and their gas gauge won't work. So you definitely want that to work while you've got the bed off. But after you cycle it a bunch of times, go ahead and crank it over. It may crank for a little bit before it starts picking up. And just like that, you can see she's running. And you can give her a little gas, make sure it's idling good. Boy, and it sounds great. Alright guys, well that's everything that you need to do to get your fuel pump fixed on type of S10 here. And it'll also work on your GMC Sonomas. And heck, I even think your Blazers. Of course, with the Blazer, you're going to have to drop that tank, which if you do that, I mean, you're going to have to go with the option of dropping it with the straps that are attached to it. But same procedure with the fuel pump on it. Just make sure you disconnect all those lines before you drop that tank. Alright guys, if you found the information in the video helpful, help me out by leaving a like and also subscribing to this channel. We got lots of cool content with this truck, show you how to fix lots of little issues with it. And then I've also got a 2014 Silverado High Country there that we do some cool stuff to every once in a while.